Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro joined the communal youth in defense of peace and the country's sovereignty. Cuba received the second shipment of humanitarian aid from Venezuela to help deal with the damage caused by Hurricane Melissa. And China warned the United States government over its military support to Taiwan, emphasizing it violates its sovereignty and security interests. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro joined the communal youth in a march in defense of peace and the country's sovereignty. The president walked alongside thousands of young people who set out from the emblematic Plaza Sucre in Catia in the west of the capital. The presence of the head of state seeks to reinforce the government's commitment to the new generations and their leading role in the construction of Bolivarian socialism. It is a direct endorsement of the grassroots organizations represented by the communities. This march served as an act of support for the national popular consultation that is scheduled for November 23rd. On election day, the organized communities themselves will select through direct vote the priority projects to be implemented in their localities.
So I call on you to join this popular, constituent process of youth to refound a giant, powerful, unprecedented confederation of all Venezuelan youth, democratic. Grassroots confederation of all Venezuelan youth is one of the most beautiful tasks we can set ourselves, and that youth have power in universities, high schools. The territory, the community, where they work, youth training, leadership, organization, and that youth look to the future for the great battles.
Cuba received the second shipment of humanitarian aid from Venezuela to help deal with the severe damage caused by Hurricane Melissa in the eastern region of the island. According to the director of the Guillermo Moncada port, the unloading of donations, including also other shipments such as supplies, food, and materials to support the recovery of the electrical system, will begin on Friday afternoon. In this regard, the director of Foreign Trade and Foreign Investment in Santiago de Cuba announced that the Defense Council will be responsible for distributing aid in the eastern provinces. In addition, the authorities also informed that the first shipment sent with Venezuela aid to Cuba has returned to Bolivarian territory after unloading tons of supplies. And in the scenario, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel expressed his gratitude to Venezuela for the humanitarian aid provided to support recovery efforts after Hurricane Melissa.
And Aileen, I also want to highlight the meeting I had before joining the round table and the meeting with the Provincial Defense Council that we experienced, which was sharing with a team of constructors from the sister Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which was sent by our brother President Maduro, led by a deputy minister, and which has worked together with our troops and the Ministry of Construction and Transportation to conduct a survey of the state of the roads. An assessment of the state of the roads and work is already underway on projects to recover with the joint participation of Venezuelans and Cubans. A group of damaged areas here in Santiago de Cuba, and that is where the true expression of the brotherhood and solidarity of two revolutions lies. A country under the threat of invasion does not forget its brothers, and here it is also collaborating. I believe that from here we must be grateful for the continuous and timely solidarity of the brotherly people of Venezuela and also of its leadership, in particular our brother President Nicolás Maduro.
In other news, the Mexican government has launched an offensive against at least 12 drug cartels operating in the state of Michoacán in the western part of the country. The North American nation has reaffirmed that this fight within its territory is a national matter. According to the authorities in charge, the operation will focus on a dozen cartels, although it could be expanded if other criminal groups are identified. More than 3,000 agents have been deployed for the operation, according to Secretary of Security Omar Garcia Harfuch. It is important to highlight that in the state, in the past month, the mayor, Carlos Manzo, and the leader of citrus producers, Bernardo Bravo, were murdered. Moving on to the United States, President Donald Trump's approval ratings have reached their lower point in his second term. According to the latest polls, 58% disapprove of the government's actions. The president's alarming numbers are due to the current government shutdown that has now ended for a couple of days, anti-immigrant policies, and the increase in segregation and exclusion rhetoric in his campaign. According to data provided by AP Norc, Ipsos, and Reuters polls, even Republican support for the president has declined in the last week, falling from 81% to 68%. Among Democrats, rejection has increased, and this could be seen in the recent election. Meanwhile, on Thursday, the United States announced the inclusion of 4 left-wing groups from Germany, Italy, and Greece on its list of terrorist organizations. The Donald Trump administration presented the measure as part of its supposed fight against extremism. According to the State Department, the targeted groups are Antifa OST in Germany, the Informal Anarchist Federation International Revolutionary Front that primarily operates in Italy, and the Greek organizations Armed Proletarian Justice and Revolutionary Class Self-Defense. With these terrorist organizations, allegedly so by the United States, the U.S. is using its security mechanisms to criminalize anti-fascist movements that oppose ultra-conservative views and policies promoted by Washington. Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. In Brazil, as COP30, the UN Climate Change Conference, moves into its 5th day, the tension between advocates of green capitalism and eco-socialism is rising. Our reporter Brian Meir with more details.
COP30, the UN Climate Change Conference, has been going on for 5 days now. And there's a tension bubbling under the surface between advocates of green capitalism and advocates of eco-socialism. 2 different paths towards resolving the climate change crisis. One, eco-capitalism or green capitalism, involves market-based solutions with the involvement of the same corporations who are most responsible for degrading the environment and raising the Earth's temperature, including the petroleum multinationals, who believe that there's a way to profit off of adaptation to climate change. On the other side, in the People's Summit, which is happening at the Federal University of Pará on the other side of Belém, 30,000 members of social movements, indigenous nations, and riverine communities from all over Latin America and all over the world are participating in an assembly today in which they're going to create a list of demands to advance the cause of eco-socialism, which believes that the only effective way to save the world's environment is through structural transformation of economies eliminating capitalism and creating a new system that involves long-term planning for the benefit of all members of society and the environment, especially the most poor. Now, we see that here at COP30, there's different booths set up from companies and foundations that are financed even by petroleum companies that are advocating for things like advancing the carbon credit market, which is essentially a way of outsourcing pollution by the most polluting companies in the global north to the developing world. So today at the Assembly, they're going to, in the People's Summit, they're going to create a list of demands that they're going to present to the organizers of COP30 tomorrow, and President Lula has also said he'll be there. So it'll be interesting to see how that is viewed by the United Nations.
And we stay in Brazil, where dozens of indigenous blocked the entrance to the COP30 summit headquarters, demanding that the Brazilian government halt the expansion of development projects in the Amazon and protect the forests. The peaceful protest denounced mining, deforestation, oil exploration, and the construction of a new railway in the Amazonian region. The demonstration was led by the Munduruku people, who live in areas affected by extractivism. The protesters blocked the entrance to the Blue Zone, where the COP30 negotiations are taking place, and demanded a meeting with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. In this scenario, security was reinforced and delegates were forced to use a side entrance to continue their negotiations at the climate summit. And the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil will examine a complaint against federal deputy Eduardo Bolsonaro, son of former President Jair Bolsonaro, for the crime of judicial coercion. The charges were brought by the Federal Public Prosecutor's Office, which accused Bolsonaro of seeking foreign sanctions on the nation and its authorities in order to prevent the conviction of his father. The formal proceedings will be conducted through a virtual plenary session and will last until November 25th. If the court accepts the charges, Eduardo Bolsonaro, who has been in the United States since February, will be indicted and a criminal case will be opened against him. We go now to Chile as part of preparations for next Sunday's presidential and legislative elections. The period banning election advertising begins. This period of silence will allow the population to reflect before casting their votes. According to the Electoral Service, all forms of advertising in printed media, on the radio, on television, and on social media platforms are now prohibited, as are electoral demonstrations and the placement of posters or billboards intended to promote candidates. Furthermore, each political party is responsible for removing all propaganda displayed in public and private spaces. We switch topics. In the United Kingdom, thousands of resident doctors have begun a 5-day strike across England on Friday to demand better wages. The action, which is the 13th walkout by doctors since March of 2023, seeks to put further pressure on government institutions, as Health Secretary Wes Streeting has refused to budge on demands for a pay uplift. For its part, the British Medical Association defended the strike, arguing that doctors need a 26% pay increase to restore their earnings once inflation is taken into account. Moreover, the association's chair assured the dispute is rooted deeper in years of pay erosion that have left resident doctors far behind other public sector's workers.
More doctors than in the last decade, last year, decided that they wanted to leave the NHS, and we think that valuing them in a fair way and ensuring that they can get employment and training is a realistic and a reasonable ask for the government. The government have not came forward with any reasonable proposal on either front, and that's why we've been forced back onto the picket lines today.
Well, we don't want to be out here on strike, but what we're saying is that we need to increase the number of doctors. The 12-hour waits we're seeing in A&E happen happening without the strikes. And if we don't increase the number of training posts and increase the number of jobs for doctors, that's going to continue to get worse.
Now we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverages, and much more. Follow our page and activate notifications to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Friday, China warned the United States government over its military support to Taiwan, emphasizing that it seriously violates Beijing's sovereignty and security interests. The statements by Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Yang addressed Washington's recent agreement with the regional government of Taiwan to sell military parts and components. According to the Western nation, the plans are to complete the arms sale to the island in 2 weeks. In the scenario, the Chinese diplomat pointed out that Taiwan is fundamental to China's interests and constitutes the first and viable red line in relation to the U.S. Moreover, the diplomat confirmed that the government will take all necessary measures to firmly defend national sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity.
The United States arms sales to Taiwan seriously violate the One China principle, and the 3 Sino-US joint communiques seriously infringe upon China's sovereignty and security interests, seriously violate international law, and send a seriously wrong signal to the Taiwan independence separatist forces. China is strongly dissatisfied and firmly opposed to this.
中方强烈不满，坚决。
We move now to Palestine, as on Thursday the Israeli army killed 2 15-year-old Palestinian teenagers near the West Bank city of Hebron on the outskirts of the teleSUR settlement. The Palestinian government's General Civil Affairs Authority identified the young men as Bilal Baha Ali Baran and Muhammad Mahu Abu Ayash. In a statement, authorities denounced the retention of their bodies and said that they had died from bullets fired by the occupation near Beit Umar. The Israeli genocidal regime defended the action, stating that its military ambushed them, allegedly to eliminate 2 terrorists who were on their way to perpetrate an attack, according to their account, without providing additional details about the identity of the deceased. The resistance movement Hamas confirmed that the attack on children in the West Bank constitutes an atrocious crime perpetrated by a terrorist government. Meanwhile, the Israeli government approved projects to build more than 26,000 homes in the occupied West Bank as part of its expansionist plans in Palestinian territory. The Applied Research Institute Jerusalem stated that the works are part of 194 projects covering a total of more than 3,000 hectares concentrated in the Jerusalem district. In this regard, the institute emphasized that according to the UN, settlements in the Palestinian territory constitute a violation of international law and have no legal validity. However, Israel continues its policies of displacement and demolition of Palestinian homes, which undermines the possibility of establishing a state and implementing peace agreements. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For teleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.